Hello everyone, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your coffee break. Let's get straight into it. I hate time wasting, you know who these people are and what we're doing here, so let's just not mess about. Just one quick thing to say by way of introduction. Usually when I do this wonderful conference, they let me do these sort of one-to-ones where I ask, Tim about, Hugh Edwards or Carolyn about queue jumping and things like that. And for some reason this year they wanted to, not your queue jumping, other people's famous presenters and their queue jumping. But this year, they wanted to do this united front to present this coherent, united message as if they're all best mates. And I think that, that is complete and utter bollocks. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 10 minutes of Cristina from Ofcom, then they're going to have 20 minutes where I'm going to let them do their special pleading, and then after that I'm going to ask them some questions which they don't know and probably won't like. So it's going to sort of get spicy as we go along, and we're going to try and puncture this illusion. Yeah? Popular. Me popular. Yeah, exactly.
Not with us, though.
Yeah. If you want to hire me, you're going to have to chat to Tim. So we're going to start off with, from Ofcom, please welcome Cristina Nicolotti Squires.
Thank you very much, and apologies for a slightly croaky voice. I'm either coming down with something terrible or I laughed too much at Michael McIntyre last night, not sure which. Thank you to the RTS and to this year's sponsors, the BBC, for giving Ofcom the chance to tell its story, how we can play a part in ensuring the creative industry, which is such a big success story of UK PLC, to make sure it continues to grow and to thrive. We talk endlessly about pace of change, but one thing remains constant in our regulation, and that's audiences. Media we trust and value is the outcome driving us at Ofcom, but it's the fact that audiences are at the heart of our policy thinking that drew me there after 35 years in news and current affairs. Yep, the pace is a bit different from the cut and thrust of the newsrooms of ITV, Channel 5 and Sky, and I've really had to work hard at moderating my language. I did drop the F word on the media show, it wasn't great. Our processes do take time, and I don't apologise for that, because it's for the right reasons, to ensure that our policies are pragmatic, evidence-based, and our stakeholders and audiences get a chance to input into them. But our thinking has to be swifter and more flexible, as the world we regulate moves at what seems like the speed of light. I like to think of us as the swans on the Thames, calm and serene on the surface, but paddling like hell underneath. The UK's creative sector is envied around the world, and we've heard a lot about that over the last couple of days. Its roaring success owes much to the content investment by the PSBs here, taking a risk on genres and growing talent and skills and an independent production sector that's reflecting all parts of our country. Ofcom's regulations underpin that success and growth. Requirements set by us mean the PSBs are universally available, have to deliver trusted news, including local, and produce an unmatched breadth of high-quality programmes that meet the needs and interests of our audiences. And we know that because they tell us that constantly. So the challenge we threw down in Transmission Critical, our recent major report into the future of public service media, was not just to you, the creative industry, or to government, but as much as to ourselves, the regulator. Looking to the next 5 to 10 years, how can we ensure that our regulation continues to support this most successful of sectors to help it flourish and grow? Because we truly believe there's a huge risk, if we just leave the status quo, we might actually wake up one morning to find this precious part of our culture has disappeared, and we won't be able to bring it back. Before I get to what Ofcom can do, just a reminder of the areas for action we set out in our report, which we think everyone must contribute to. Firstly, prominence. Audiences must be able to see and find PSM content. By next summer, we will have delivered the prominence regime for PSBs on smart TVs, an important part and step from the Media Act. So the logical next step is to examine what does prominence look like on places like YouTube and social media, where audiences are increasingly watching TV. We've said that as a priority, public service broadcasters and YouTube should work urgently to ensure that PSM content is prominent and easy to find on the platforms, and crucially on fair commercial terms. This is particularly important for news and children's content. We've been clear that the government should consider whether this needs to be underpinned by legislation, and we'll be working closely with YouTube, the PSBs and the government on this. Secondly, a timely decision on the future of the delivery of television. We've worked closely with government already to advise on the options for the future of DTT. It's now for the government to decide what's next, but we've been clear a decision's needed soon. This is what the broadcasters have told us they need, and it is crucial. Without the clarity of what's next and then action, audience trends will take DTT from being one of the most significant benefits of being a public service broadcaster to a costly obligation that you, the broadcasters, subsidise. Thirdly, we called for more ambitious partnerships among the PSBs. We've heard all day and yesterday, scale is so important, and it's critical for the public service broadcasters and other domestic broadcasters to connect with their audiences and compete with global streaming platforms, who in some cases they depend on to reach viewers. Competition and plurality do need to be preserved, but broadcasters need to be more ambitious in pursuing strategic and technological partnerships. Be bold. Consider everything, from working together to use AI in a way that audiences trust to tech support. Nothing should be off the table in terms of collaboration. To support this, we're also working with the CMA to make sure that changes to the sector in recent years are part of any regulatory decisions. Fourthly, we called broadcasters and online platforms both to invest in what's known as media literacy, but I prefer to call critical thinking or digital citizenship. We now know that so many people are getting their news on social media. How does society equip us with the skills to work out what's true and what isn't? This is not, crucially not, tampering with the freedom of expression, but encouraging platforms and broadcasters to help their users navigate a highly complex and sometimes quite bewildering world. We strongly recommend the public service broadcasters who are uniquely placed to support audience invest in this area. And online platforms must do more. This week, under the Online Safety Act, we published for consultation recommendations for how social media and other services should promote media literacy by design, as well as asking broadcasters to play their part. And then number 5, the money question, stable and adequate funding to secure a broad range of PSM content, including, crucially, trusted and accurate news and programmes that showcase the diversity of the whole of the UK and bring us together in those moments, whether it's the finale to the World Cup or whether it's a great drama series. Now, the funding for PSMs is largely a matter for government, but as well as the licensee settlement, includes other areas, such as fair payment for content by AI services and tax breaks for lower-cost drama or at-risk genres. So those were our first 5 recommendations for action. What's in Ofcom's gift, largely, is how we regulate the industry, both for audiences and for those who make the great public service content those audiences tell us they value. So Action 6 laid out what Ofcom can do. Much of our regulatory and legislative framework that we have now was designed for a world where audiences' choice was limited to switching channels. Some of you here will remember when you actually had to stand up and walk to change a TV channel. Audiences now have so much available to them, wherever and however they want to consume it, and I actually think they've never had it so good. The Media Act has been a vital reform to help our regulation keep pace. It brings important changes, such as supporting the PSBs to deliver their remit across linear and online services, giving the PSBs on-demand services prominence on connected TV platforms, and ensuring that UK radio streams are available on voice assistants. They are significant steps, but we need to do more. So in November, we'll launch a call for evidence, an open invitation for everyone, not just those in this room, to give us their input on what's important to them. In that, we're focusing on 3 main areas. Reforming the licensing framework so it reflects today's market and is flexible enough for tomorrow's innovations. The licensing regime was designed for a world of scarce spectrum, but now we access content in so many different ways, and just as with our new approach to the BBC's operating licence, recognising they deliver programming via different platforms, we'll consider whether a simpler regime for TV and for radio is more appropriate. In advertising, for the commercial PSBs, the pace of change has fundamentally disrupted their traditional business models. We think it's time to take a fresh look at advertising regulation to see where current rules need updating or stripping out, given the big difference between linear and online. Some of this will require legislative change, but we'll be ready to consult on meaningful change on those areas within our remit. And on content standards, we all know audiences are moving online, and our rules to protect them need to move too. We don't want a patchwork of different codes for TV, on-demand, online. Our priority for 2026 is to implement the new VOD code under the Media Act. But beyond that, our goal is simple. Rules that apply fairly to content wherever it's shown, that work alongside the online safety regime, and that keep audiences safe. We'll explore how to do this without compromising on the critical standards set out in the Broadcasting Code, including, crucially, due impartiality and accuracy in news and current affairs. So these are 3 areas of focus on our call for evidence, and as I said, we'll publish that in November. We can't stand still. Regulation must keep pace, and it will. By working together with industry, we can seize this opportunity to build a framework that gives audiences confidence in the media of tomorrow. But this is only part of what we're doing, and there are other areas demanding our attention, and none can be more important than news. I am perhaps slightly biased after 35 years in it, but I do think that duly impartial, accurate news, which reflects the worlds of everyone in the UK, which shares opinions fairly and provides solid information that people can trust, is the most important part of public service media. Trusted news isn't a luxury, it's the lifeblood of a healthy democracy. We know from our latest Ofcom research that more people consume news online than through TV, radio, or newspapers, and yet the more traditional providers are rated more highly for trust, accuracy, and impartiality. Audiences tell us that PSBs continue to play a key role in their news consumption. You saw in that graph earlier on in that really interesting discussion, the BBC is still the most used provider of news in the UK, but it's only part of the picture. The pressures on trusted news are intensifying, from polarisation in public debate to the rapid spread of mis- and disinformation in the digital world. These issues cut across our wider work on content standards. So the question for us is, what role should the regulator play in ensuring that trusted, accurate news remains visible and accessible to all audiences wherever they are? So what unites a former news journalist, the regulator, and the future of public service media? Well, it's the audience. It's always been about the audience. Anyone knows me knows I'll talk forever about how public service media is stitched into the cultural fabric of UK society. It starts conversations, educates and informs. As I said, brings us together in moments of national importance, celebratory or crisis. But today's not about being misty-eyed about the past. What's important today, the people gathered in this room, is the future. How in a world dominated by global streaming platforms do we protect public service media? Do we protect impartial and accurate news? And how do we protect the chance to tell stories that give a voice to everyone in the UK? I believe in our 6-point plan. It maps out a clear route that would help sustain public service media for the future. But it relies on collective action from broadcasters, online platforms, the government, and of course Ofcom. So our call for evidence is your chance to tell us what you need from us. We want to work with you to go further, to support your innovation and growth, and to protect audiences wherever they are. Thank you.
Cristina, thank you.
I haven't got a chair.
You haven't got a chair.
Fine.
I mean...
No, it's fine, I'll stand. Carry on.
To be honest, they didn't really foresee you continuing your involvement in the panel. But do you want? Why don't
I'll
you
go and sit down.
No, hang on. Have you got a microphone there or not? Because I feel that it'd be rude not to if you're expecting to say more. Why don't you all just respond briefly to that and say what you really think, and then Cristina can respond. Why don't we do that briefly, Jonathan? Have you got a microphone? You just have to shout.
I've got one.
You got one.
Yeah.
Oh, you're wearing one. Okay, Jonathan, briefly, please.
What's the question, sorry?
Do you want to respond to what you just heard from your regulator?
Yes, love it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's really good to have...
Wonderful, thank you very much. No, don't be boring,
firstly,
please. Don't be...
I'd say, firstly, they've listened, so we've been part of consultation. 2, it's now about action. We've talked about this, right? So government talk a lot about how important PSM is and et cetera, and you talk a lot about that, and I know you believe that, but we've got to take action. The Media Act has to be implemented with teeth, i.e. Ofcom is not just a passive manager of the Media Act. They have to actually act, they have to intervene. They've never done that before. with the Media Act, because it's new, but it was so long in the coming, as you know. So for me, it's about action from government and from Ofcom.
I'm going to ask you to respond to that in a second. But first, Tim.
Let's get on with it. It's a good list. Let's make it happen.
Marvellous. Sarah?
You're not going to like this, but unless we all agree, it won't happen. Like, I've been around these corridors for as long as everyone else on the panel. It's only when we get in the same room and say this is what we have to do to preserve the ecology that we're part of, that we have the slightest chance of it happening. So we're fiercely competitive. Overnight still exist, streaming numbers still exist, we're fiercely competitive with each other, but actually it's about survival. The only way of us surviving as our part of the industry is if we do agree, I'm afraid. Amol, sorry.
Sure, no, that's absolutely fine. Cristina, just a quick thought, please, on what Carolyn was saying about the need to kind of accelerate the Media Act.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're working through it. We are, as I said, we're consulting. We're going to put the video on demand code out to consulting. We're drawing up the codes of practice for prominence, appropriate prominence on the connected TVs. That's all going according to plan. The Media Act actually covers a huge amount, but I think there's something like 35, 36 different papers and guides and codes that we're publishing, and we're literally just crunching through them. By the time we get to the end of this academic year, so like by next summer, it should all be in place and we should all be start enforcing it. And I know we all want speed, but you can't, you know, when you're doing things for the first time, you've got to do it slowly and steadily and carefully to make sure that not everything you're doing is constantly being challenged in the court. So it's getting it right is really important.
Can I just say, so there's a lot of focus on prominence, which is correct, and everyone's talked about in the last day and a half. You'll have to start thinking about fair value on platforms, because there is no point us being told we have to go on platforms when actually the payaways are so high that it makes it completely uneconomic for a PSB to be on some platforms. And it can take, it can take away very hard-earned revenue, and we all know there's not, it's not infinite sources of revenue, ad revenue. So fair value, where you can adjudicate in the future, is going to be critical.
As I said, fair commercial terms are really important.
Yes, so important, because we talk a lot about prominence. Great, that message has got across to everybody, but it's also about fair value.
All right, Cristina, thank you very much. Please take a seat. Can we thank Cristina? I just want to trot through some of those issues and let you make the case for some of the things that you all do agree on. What's the case for greater prominence, Jonathan?
Well, listen, Channel 4 always been very enthusiastic about social media. We're massive on YouTube. We've massively leaned in. I think our YouTube viewing this year has grown 60% year on year. So we're a big fan of YouTube. We have a great relationship with them. It's a good commercial relationship. We think we make incremental money there. But YouTube is obviously a perfectly competitive platform. You know, there's so much content on there that finding Channel 4 content there is still very difficult. The algorithm obviously works on personalization. So, you know, if we want to have good PSB content surfaced on YouTube, I think dealing with that commercially when they're a massive global platform and we're just the UK, it's going to be very, very difficult to get the prominence that we need for PSB. So I think there does need to be a regulatory backstop on that, and you know, particularly on big TVs. So how do we get prominence on there? How does the algorithm favour our type of content? And TikTok's got a STEM kind of thing within its algorithm. I think YouTube also has something similar about quality in children's on YouTube Kids. So there's definitely ways of executing the algorithm to make it favour good quality content from PSBs, and also news, because I think news is a big part of this as well. So I think there's work to do on prominence, and clearly, you know, we're very happy to work with YouTube on that without regulation, but in the end, we probably do need some regulation. And I would echo Carolyn's point. I think, you know, the rev share, are we getting fair value back for the amount of money we're spending on content? It's very different being a creator in your bedroom versus a big broadcaster like this. And again, all of those terms are pretty similar around the world. We've negotiated a long time with them. We think we could probably do with a better deal.
But why on earth should YouTube, which is an American company, owned by another American company, owned by another American company, which was set up 20 years after Channel 4, and which has got these magnificent products, which it successfully monetized and has captured the attention of a global audience, why should they give you some special advantage?
Well, I think commercially they probably shouldn't, but that's why we need regulation. I think it's about what do
what's the advantage? What do you want from YouTube that you're not getting?
What do we care about in the UK? We care about good quality public service content And if YouTube is the dominant platform through which people are watching television in the future, we've come from a position where clearly we've been given prominence in linear television. We get prominence on streaming. We now have prominence on Samsung TVs.
But they've acquired that status because they've been fantastically innovative and they've built incredible products and services. Why don't you innovate better?
Well, because I think algorithms don't always favour the type of content we make. And I think it's dangerous to society to have a purely algorithmic way of watching TV content. I think you can see what's going on in the world out there in terms of people getting into echo chambers, only watching what they want to watch. It's a steady stream of the same thing. You know, there's an intervention here, not just for public service media, but for society, I think.
Okay, so at the other end of it, I know one of your concerns, and I should say, Sarah, this is your last panel before you go off into the...
I'll miss the industry. Normally, I will not miss the panels, but go on.
You'll miss this panel. But Sarah's going to go and run the Royal Foundation. Congratulations on that. But you, I know, are concerned about the fact that although we live in this algorithmically driven world, and we're all becoming slaves to the algorithm, you're worried about linear audiences and making sure that the whole of the UK is represented.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more worried about the latter than I am about the former. I think linear is a form of distribution, not a box that we never enter out of. Five does cater for an older audience. Let's not demonise them. We talk a lot about young viewers, but we're all living a long time. And we know that, I mean, I'm not going to make you do a show of hands, but I'm guessing that 5 is not the most viewed channel in this room. But for some people out there, it's their primary choice every evening. And we're incredibly proud of serving all corners of the nation, and also sourcing content from all corners of the nation. Now, we talk a lot about the global streamers coming over and what they spend in the UK. It's an incredibly important part of our ecosystem. But actually, the way to fuel that is to invest and grow small suppliers from around the nation who reflect our society back at themselves and then in turn build skills and training and development that benefits the top end of the funnel. We do our part in that. Take public service broadcasting out of the ecology. Who else is going to do that? I mean, the creator panel yesterday was fantastic. They are here to stay. They're not in their bedrooms anymore. They're in their wholly owned studios. Wonderful. The streamers are here to stay. Neither of them are doing what we do in terms of developing, investing in and growing the creative entrepreneurship out in our industry that makes long-form professionally produced content. It's incredibly important that we don't lose sight of that.
Is there anything in that you disagree with, Tim?
No.
No. On this question of the clear timetable for a digital switchover, I looked at that and I was trying to work out how to make that sound interesting. Like, I mean, it seems sort of, what's the issue there?
We'll listen to how you ask the question and then judge your success on your brief. Yeah.
Cheers. Why has it not happened yet? What do you need that you're not getting and why has it not happened yet?
We're not getting clarity. And I think...
From the government, as opposed to the regulator?
I think it's a high-level, top-level decision for the government on where they see the UK going. And it sits well above this sector, which is, do we want everyone to be connected to broadband and the benefit that brings to our society? And we know that there are a significant number of people who, through economic hardship or geographic location, they're a limited number now, but there's still a number of people who are not connected. We all probably know older people who may be struggling with, getting online, etc. But this requires leadership. It says, okay, we don't want our country to have that situation for the next 10, 15 years. We see massive, I mean, there's huge GVA to be added when we see healthcare online, broadcast. Now, what's fascinating is then we get to this sector and say, we can be incredibly helpful. What's the main thing that people often on their, we've got 8 million households or whatever, is one person in it. Television is incredible. We are the company for so many people. And actually, it is quite sad that many people can't get the iPlayer, they can't get ITVX. Why not give them that choice? So I think we just have to say, we're not shopping for a date, just to be clear. We're not shopping for, it's going to be 2034. What we're shopping for is, we are going to do this together. We can do it together. It's a limited number of households. You can work how we support them. We need to work with, broadband suppliers, all of that. If there was a will to really do it, we could do this. Now, we have within our midst significant extra cost to have those two distribution systems. So that is hampering what we want to grow, which is a UK ecosystem and support. So there's a massive benefit there. But frankly, it just needs leadership. And I was there 2 years ago, he says, slightly pompously, saying, we need to set the course. It's, in some ways, it's quite bold, if I may, it's quite bold for us to do it, because you may lose a bit of share in that, because you're opening every household up to the on-demand world. But my view is it's the right thing to do for the economy. It helps us parochially within our industry, but also we can be incredibly helpful. It just needs clarity. It just needs clarity in policy.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
But why has it not happened yet? So what do the government say to you when you say that? Because it sounds like an obvious win-win.
Because it may be obvious to you, but I think there are concerns about the left behind. There are concerns about what is, for a few million households, what would you do over time? I would just say we need to make, more than anything, we need clarity, and we need a clear decision to say, this is where we're heading. And you could do it on thresholds. You say, once you get to that many households at the date, then we'll go into the final phase. Look, we've been really good at doing digital switchover. We can work together to do that. And the other thing is we have commercial broadcasters. I mean, the BBC does have the privilege of the license fee, but it's tough out there to make money. Why on earth should we be lumbering our businesses with unnecessary distribution costs for the long term? That just is not smart.
Carolyn, sorry, I interrupted.
No, we all agree on this. I mean,
I'm getting that
for
impression.
us as a commercial public service broadcaster, running two cost bases to deliver exactly the same content to our audiences is going to become more and more difficult as the years go on. And so therefore having a date and being able to plan for that date as PSBs would be very, very helpful. That's what government's absolutely got to do.
Right.
Give us a date.
When last week ITV celebrated 70 years and your star speaker was Rachel Reeves, and she turned up and you said, "Hi Rachel, how's it going? Can we have some tax credits?" What did she say?
She's very receptive. I think they're very receptive. Again, I think this is about action. So it's a no-brainer. The economic case is pretty irrefutable. We've done a lot of work on this. Jane is leading the charge. Jane Featherstone is kind of representing all of us. And look, one of the figures that I think is very important is we all know we're world-class production, right? We have world-class production, therefore world-class content in this country. However, last year, 25% of shows that could be made in this country went overseas, so were produced in other countries like Belgium or Germany or Ireland in particular, and that's because their tax credit system is a much better incentive than we have here. The film industry gets a 40% tax credit, and that has supercharged that industry. It's been really successful. And so it's a no-brainer, I think, for us as an industry for TV to have the same. And to Sarah's point, what that does, that creates something like 7,000 jobs in this country. That 25% would, that whole ecosystem is about job creation, but most importantly, a lot of people get their first jobs on those 1 to 3 million shows, because they are lower budget shows than the high end, the very high end. And so whether it's on or off camera, many people start their careers doing that, and that's skills, that's kind of growing the skills base, which everyone talks about being so important. So the economic benefits are irrefutable. So the key thing for me is, I think the government, like this, is actually going to pay for itself quite quickly. It's just about action. This is what, it's just do it, right? Just do it.
So even amongst this highly intelligent and specialist audience, I don't want to assume too much knowledge. Can you just explain how, if you got tax credits announced in the budget, what sort of specific tax credits you're looking for and lobbying for, and how they would change ITV in the next financial year?
Well, I think what happens is that so at the moment there is a tax credit for TV, but it's half that film. And what it allows us to do is economically greenlight projects. So there are a whole load of shows currently that are greenlit editorially, so they've been commissioned, but the funding is not in place for those shows. So you've got to find a way of being able to produce those shows economically, and if you have a deficit on that, it just takes so much longer to do. So it would help get those shows greenlit because you're getting a tax credit which will help you with the funding.
Got it. Sarah?
We are making way more shows than we ever thought we would. Next year we'll have 120 hours of drama, but we're not shooting all of them in the UK. What the tax credits would do would mean we would continue with that level of production. We wouldn't make more money out of it, but the UK economy would. Because rather than supporting skills infrastructure in Hungary and Malta and northern Spain, where it's great and we're very proud of what comes out of it, we'd do it here. We have production companies waiting to go. We know that if we can get tax credits for the sort of drama that we make, and we should not be snobby about the fact that it costs less than $1 million. Viewers love it. They do very well on Netflix. It is possible to make cheaper drama. You need everything across the spectrum. But we know that if the tax credits came at that level, the production companies we work with would open bases in the regions, would use British writers, British directors, British locations. So the 1 to 3 million I absolutely support, but it just needs to be a bit lower than that so that we don't lose the content that does affect some miracles.
Yeah, and I think, listen, it's been proven in the film business. It works. It's an absolute injection of, capital, money. You get, obviously, more foreign people coming here as well to making shows. It's super important. But again, can we get it done quickly enough to make a difference?
And I think we've talked a lot about news, and we haven't talked a lot about regional news, actually. But there is a huge case, I think, to be made to the government about regional news also benefiting from some kind of tax credit, because it's very expensive to make, but it's absolutely essential to our democracy.
I think what Shruti was saying is really interesting, which is Treasury will look at it and say, is it accretive, or is this just special pleading and making our economics better and making everyone richer? I think one is we have a pretty good case in terms of this being accretive. What I don't think we've done enough is look at the jeopardy and say, okay, where is the trend line going? And if you don't add, the rest of the world is not sitting there doing nothing, it's adding tax credits. We're seeing a degree of self-interest in the way certain governments are behaving. Yeah?
Don't look at me.
They will become, I'm just looking at you as a geopolitical analyst of stature. Hang on,
what does that mean? Geopolitical analyst of Thatcher?
No, definitely not of that, no.
What did you say? What did you say?
Of stature.
Of stature, thank you very much. Did you think he said Thatcher? I thought he said Thatcher.
I think that says more about him than me, but anyway. We'll be talking about that later.
I'm very happy to talk about our interest in politics, mate.
Can't wait to the next Today programme. But no, the point here is those governments are acting and taking measures to attract production. It's a flipping competitive market out there.
I have to say, this whole thing is a no-brainer.
Right, I think this is boring. This is really friendly and lovely. We all get on. We all agree.
Right,
So
the room's all with us as well. We're all together.
We're best friends on Prominence, on a timetable for a digital switchover, on tax credits, and looking after people that don't live in London. That's
lovely.
Marvellous. Let's ask some slightly fruitier questions. Sarah, Channel 4 have just moved into their own content production. Do you think that's a good idea?
So I'm going to take my Paramount hat off because Paramount has not commented publicly on Channel 4 at all. But my personal one, given that I'm leaving the stage, and love for and worked there for half my career.
All right, for the caveats, yeah.
I worked there when we were doing the Indie Growth Fund. I think it's great, and I actually think it's not had the light shone on it enough. That is creative entrepreneurship. That is investing in the very indies out in the marketplace that I'm talking about needing to preserve. My personal view is they should not do in-house production because I just don't see what that adds to the story that Channel 4 so importantly tells in our market. It's not what they were created for. It does not help the indie production community out there who, let's face it, and there's not many of them in the room, are having a torrid time of it at the moment. Another broadcaster starting an in-house production unit does not help that, particularly when they were created for it. It's my personal view, and I think the Indie Growth Fund is great, and I applaud the Firecrest is a great company for them to have bought this week. But starting from scratch with your own in-house, to me, doesn't take Channel 4 forwards.
Jonathan Allan. Oh, hang on. Did someone want to applaud from an indie? Did I hear some applause?
It's all fine. There we go.
Hands up if you agree. Hands up. Hang on. Hands up if you. Let's make this interesting. Hands up if you agree with Sarah.
Oh, fuck.
Not everyone.
Charlotte Moore's just put her hand. Goodness me. Charlotte Moore's put her hands up. Not to say anyone else is lower stature or Thatcher than Charlotte Moore, but Jonathan Allan.
Well, I think, right, okay, so I think if we all want a strong independent Channel 4 in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years' time, I think, we do have to look at the business model. At the moment, we are pretty much totally advertiser funded. Those revenues will be flat, slowly growing at best in a world where our overheads are climbing all the time, content costs are going up. So we've got to diversify our revenues, or Channel 4, might not be here in 15 years' time. And I think, if you want Channel 4, and again, the IP and in-house production will only ever be a very small proportion of our total production, and we will still spend vastly more with indies as Channel 4 than any other of the broadcasters who have got very significant in-house production units already. So I think, the economic value of having IP and IHP is critical for us as a diversified revenue. I think also, again, if you listen to any of the panels yesterday, it was all about IP. Channel 4 doesn't own any of its IP. We don't protect our IP. We can commission shows and they can move from Channel 4 at whim. So I think there's also a kind of sustainability, strategic, benefit of owning IP and having IHP.
But aren't you damaging the very industry and sector that you were set up to support at a time when it's on its knees?
Well, I don't think so, because really what we're trying to do is try and make some more money to reinvest in the independent production fraternity. And the problem is, if we don't do that, then that money will go down anyway. So if you want a successfully economic Channel 4 that's got money to spend on production, we need to diversify our revenues, or we won't be here.
Carolyn, sorry, you're nodding. I can't remember if you were nodding at me or...
No, I didn't have anything.
I think you were agreeing with the gist of what
Sarah
Sarah said.
Very successful studios business, and that's that.
Yeah, but
look at
Jonathan, we were born from Granada, right? So our production business is 70 years old, just as ITV is 70 years old, because we came from a production background. So it's not like we're today creating a production business. It's a very different environment today.
But Jonathan's got a point. As in, why should you be allowed to make your own TV programmes?
Because we've always done that. We've done that
so
for
what?
70 years.
The world's changed.
Why can't we start?
I haven't said you can't.
Okay.
I haven't said
but you said you agree with Sarah.
I can't say that you can't.
No, but you did say you agree with Sarah.
All I was doing is agreeing with Sarah that I think it is hard for the production industry.
I see. I get that.
And therefore, I think you were set up to support indies, and actually we spend loads of money with indies. Even though we have our own studios business, we probably spend more than you actually, I think technically, with indies, and only because we're bigger. But I mean, we do spend a lot of money with indies, so we support the indie sector. We have quotas, we are hugely supportive of.
Yeah, but I need to say, the production business we will build over 5 to 10 years is going to be pretty small. So the impact on the independent sector is going to be tiny, and I would hope, because we make more money from doing that, our content budgets will go up, and we'll eventually spend more with you guys. So I think that's an important part of this. It's not a zero-sum game. That's the aim.
Okay.
And I also appreciate it's really hard, as to Wayne Garvey's point, it's really hard to set up a successful production business. Now, we're under no illusions of how hard that's going to be, to find great companies and to hire a good creative team to do that. We're going to give it a go, but just because it's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
Okay, so I knew we could make this panel fun. Let's talk about consolidation. In preparation for this panel, I looked up what's happening with consolidation, and I came across this wonderful first sentence in a story in The Guardian. It said, and I quote, "ITV has drawn up a radical plan for a three-way merger with Channel 4 and Channel 5 that would prompt one of the biggest shake-ups in British broadcasting history." And this headline is from February the 25th, 2009.
2009. Thank God. Having worked for The Guardian, I was hoping to be accurate.
The Guardian, you know it.
2009.
With a picture of a beaming Michael Grade, which some things don't change. Now, if there was a case for consolidation, in 2009, you might think there was a case in 2025. I don't know, maybe 2029. Which one of you is going to have the guts to put aside your short-term interests and leave a proper legacy for this industry by properly consolidating? Carolyn, McCall.
Okay. So what I'd say is consolidation takes many forms, okay? And I think there will be consolidation. But I think when government talks about consolidation in our industry, they don't really mean, I don't think, between the PSBs. They mean collaboration. And we've demonstrated that we collaborate. Okay, so we did. The first call I made was to the BBC when I joined ITV, which was on BritBox. It's the first call. I just said, look, we've got to do this, blah, blah, blah. It's done very well for both of us. We do a lot of stuff on Freely and all those other things. That's very different to consolidation, right? Because each one of us has a very different business model. I'm owned by shareholders, right? I'm a PLC. Therefore, I have a duty to my audiences, but also to my shareholders. And I can't, when you talk about intra-consolidation, it would mean the government having to buy ITV, effectively, right? Buying out our shareholders. That's the only way you could see intra-media consolidation with the PSBs. You may be able to see it with Channel 4 and BBC. I'm not stitching you up. I'm just saying you could see it more because although you're ad-funded, the government has a lot to do with you, and obviously the BBC's licence fee is funded by the government. But for me and Sarah, we come from a different world.
Sure, but Tim, Cristina talked about strategic partnerships. And obviously that goes on a lot. There's all sorts of working together in all sorts of ways. But the full hog, the big idea, the end game, which is, say the BBC and Channel 4 coming together and saying we're going to be bigger through scale, we can find efficiencies and all the rest of it. What's the impediment to that happening? Why should it not happen?
I think there's different business models, and what that leads you to, I think Carolyn's making a fundamental point about different business models, and then also the PSBs, but the clues in the title, we are also about what impact we have. I mean, it's interesting on the production, hairdryer and all that stuff going on, but because what that means is people really are interested in, this intervention has economic effects, and right. I think there's massive opportunity to do the work we've kind of been doing, but probably at a different level.
Yeah, more.
On tech, on there's a whole load of areas. Certainly, I think us, deeper collaboration on our tech stack, potentially. There's a whole load of things. Jonathan and I are also deep in partnership. We sell advertising together. They sell advertising for us. Should there be 3 advertising houses? I can say, it's not my business, but is there 3 TV advertising sales? There's a lot. There's big ways we can do. What's the entities that are going to be constructed? What's the equity holdings? All of that, I think, is up for grabs.
Would you be...
Bear with me.
Well,
I want to make one further point. I do think, however, one of the things we've got is multiple buying points and commissioning. That is really helpful. So the indies in the room, let's just think about it. Say we merge completely. There'd be one buying point, the BBC, in that. I'm not sure.
No. Definitely don't want that.
It's not happening.
I'm not sure that's good for the UK ecosystem. Do I need more linear real estate? I've got a couple of linear channels and some. Yeah, I just think it's a question of the business models are smart, but do I take Ofcom's challenge? Absolutely. I think there's areas where we're going to have to decide where we're going to have to be more aggressive in getting scale together.
Can I ask you a specific question before I bring in Sarah, which is, would you be prepared, you've talked about how the iPlayer is industry leading, would you be prepared to share your industry leading and taxpayer funded technology?
Yeah, the right term, on the right terms, and that could be kind of good terms with people in terms of public service in the UK. Yeah, we should be talking about that.
Sarah, you were nodding earlier about consolidation. What are the bits you see kind of efficiencies or common sense in not just, but we're not talking about just strategic partnerships, but full-on consolidation, for instance, one team selling advertising across channels?
Got to be careful not to make the TV market smaller by shrinking it too much. I think plurality is the word that we all land on here, but the joy of this market that allows the 4 of us to sit here all these decades later and defend and lobby for it to continue to be defended is that we cater to audiences with a plurality of voice. And if you go to a single buying point or a single channel, you're going to lose that, and it'll be much harder to defend the ecosystem that we are so keen to protect. That doesn't mean that you can't share CDN costs, metadata, compliance, of course. The stuff that no one sees, the boring bits that you definitely don't want to talk about behind the scenes. But the brand, the editorial, the audience focus, what makes this special is the plurality. It's up to us in our respective ownership models, and I sit in the Venn diagram of an American company that owns 5, which spends a lot of money on big drama and film in this market, by the way, benefiting from the aforementioned tax credits. And we're really delighted with our new owners, not just because one of them's sitting in the audience, but it's exciting to be part of such a big media organisation. But they let us operate in this PSB ecosystem, supported in a wider org. And then the other half of the Venn diagram is I sit on this PSB market where we're all lobbying and we are in agreement about the things that matter. The net effect of that does not mean to say that we all need to be owned by one. I think you shrink too much.
You want the optimal structure to attract the capital and have the muscle to compete. And actually, it is a great story to have a US owner of one of our PSBs doing what it does, and supporting news, all those things. And then we've got the BBC, which provides, frankly, a unique and scaled public service broadcaster that gives us some security around the public service, public service.
Yeah, and I think having strong independent brands, audiences want that. We know, research shows us that we all offer something different, we're distinctive, people come to us for different reasons, we're clearly independent buyers, and all of you producers pitch slightly different ideas to all of us because you know what we're looking for. I think that's really important. But I think also, given, if we're looking at 10 or 15 years out, we've all got to look at our operating model.
Yeah.
Because we're all duplicating technology, we've all got our own tech stacks, we've all got our own streaming services, we've all got our play out. So I think, and overheads are going up massively. So we've got to think about how do we reduce our overheads so we can spend more on content and more on marketing. And I think, you know, the duplication between us, if you were kind of looking down from here, I actually think that's not helpful. So whether that's partnership or picking the same suppliers, I think it's really important. And I would say also, in terms of collaboration, you know, we, from an ad sales perspective, are competing with YouTube and Meta and TikTok and Netflix and Amazon. You know, the fact that the, you know, CMA view the ad market as television advertising, you know, I think there is an opportunity for more consolidation.
They have to change that.
We've got, because we've got some propagandistic VT at the end, we've only got a couple of minutes left. Just before we come to that, this entire discussion, Carolyn, about PSBs, and doesn't it presuppose an idea of the public, which is basically in retreat? I mean, your organisations were founded in really a 20th century model of kind of a few to many broadcasting. And I don't know if you've heard a very good podcast on the BBC called Radical, but there was a...
Not yours, is it?
Well, funny that. But there's the manager of the Sidemen came on, and George Schwarzenberger, a lot of people here will know, talked about how we've gone from mass culture to monoculture. Isn't this whole discussion based on an old 20th century idea of a few people broadcasting to masses, whereas actually we've moved into a culture where it's masses broadcasting.
Look at how much we've done. Look at how much we've done on streaming. iPlayer, ITVX, all of our, you know, ITVX is growing exponentially. It's making a load of money. I mean, it's giving us incremental digital revenue. I mean, you know, by 2026, hopefully 750 million quid, you know, that we wouldn't have had without that. I mean, it's hugely powerful. And really, I think we have transformed, I mean, certainly for ITV, we've transformed what we do. And we are very, very, it's very important for us to nurture linear because it is still very powerful. It's still getting huge audience. Listen, our share is greater than Netflix, Amazon, and Disney put together, ITVs alone, right? So you've got to put that in perspective. So what we have to do is make sure that we are investing sufficiently in the user experience of ITVX and actually putting as much as we can, effort-wise, into that. Because that will be the future. That will be ITV in the future.
So I agree with that. I agree with Carolyn. But I think it's a very valid question. So I think it's not about linear and streaming, it's about social. And I think unless we all can get into social and get into those microcultures and start to produce content and work with these creators, you know, we're not getting to that mass audience in those platforms.
As long as you can monetize that.
It's also
why we need fair.
I kind of go, but it's about brand and purpose.
Yeah.
What are we about and what relevance do we offer to a household, an individual that goes, that fits, I need that, that's what I want. Okay. It's got to be driven by that. And my view is the problem that we've been talking about, speed and this sense of, we're just sitting here managing decline. The speed we need is to ensure that public service broadcasters are not constrained by, to your point, antiquated regulation or constructs or competitive kind of frameworks which don't allow it to respond to the market. Because we've got global players who can just unregulated respond to a market.
Exactly.
And this is not actually a growth problem in terms of what audiences want. When we talk to them, we go, we want trusted news. Actually, we want our kids to have bites, you know, AI that is literally purpose-driven. There's a huge demand for local drama. You know, celebrity traitors may do okay. Yeah?
And actually, you know, when we go on to other platforms...
In terms of our Fact 10 titles, we can do this. The issue is if we're defining ourselves based on, I mean, I'm not making some big picture around, linear will be big for ages, but we've got, to Jonathan's point, we've got to reshape our output, and that's the game.
Okay.
And we need help to do that. We've got to make a conscious decision as the UK to do that.
We've heard that request. A final thought from Sarah, please.
Can I raise the flag for something that we've not talked about at all in the conference? And I think that tells a story in itself, which is children's content. So linear, streaming, social, these are methods of distribution. We can get tired of in knots about how we do commercial deals. We are, on this panel, to be a little bit controversial, the only terrestrial broadcaster that still has 3 hours of dedicated children's programming.
That does well.
We talk about tax credits for drama, but we no longer benefit from the Young Adults Content Fund. That was fueling a lot of British-produced content. Cocomelon is great. I applaud Bluey. There's got to be more than that for Generation Beta, not Alpha, or it is official. I called it this morning. It's officially Beta.
Okay.
Unless we continue with the model we've got, that will simply not be there for British children.
But I just want to mount a defence for a blue dog.
No,
okay?
I applaud it.
No, I know you applaud it, but it's the key is we have an IP position on that title. Therefore, that is funding, Bluey is funding a lot of shows in this room.
Yeah.
Because once you've got that system
It's
working,
all on YouTube anyway.
it's all IP.
I've got two.
It's all IP.
I've got
on
two
YouTube.
very, very. We're out of time, which is not how I was meant to do this. Two very, very quick final questions, both for Jonathan. Jonathan, has anyone ever said to you that you look like Jimmy Kimmel?
No.
Davie's an absolute doppelganger. He's a doppelganger.
I set up this whole conference that the quality of conversation
And then the second thing is
going to be. And what are you?
I just this morning I was looking at your face thinking.
What are you doing?
And then
Anyway.
the second thing is, and then the final thing is, you're interim boss of Channel 4. Would you like the job permanently?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Please thank our panel.